Hello, all. So, I decided today to talk about debt, my debt, how I got in and how I got out. I'm going to give you a condensed version because it it happened over a period of years, but um, by the time it was all over, I was like $40,000 in debt. So, my story started when I was 17 years old. I went away to school, and one of the things I had never had a credit card, but the credit card vendors hang out on campus and try to get you to sign up for a card. I guess because they know we're just young and stupid. So I got a card, and it was only like maybe $1,000 limit on it or something. But I got a card, and I pretty quickly maxed it out. It didn't take long. Buying things that I didn't really need, but just because I got $1,000, so I just went and bought them. Anyway, then you know another another person would try to get me to get a card, and they always would give you perks if you signed up for a card. So it was like, in addition to getting the card, you get this whatever it was, and it wasn't anything big. It was just, I get an extra ball or t-shirt, just some dumb shit. But I would do it. And I remember my minimum payment was $15 a month for the $1,000 card. And I thought, I got $15. Like, I can do that. And then I racked up another card. So now I have $2,000 in debt. But it's like, I got $30. And so this kept growing. I kept getting more cards, and it just kind of spun out of control. I don't even know how many cards I had, but it was a lot. And now my minimum payment was significantly higher than I could really work out. I didn't have a job. I was just like, I decided to do like one of those consolidation loans where you take out a loan to pay off your credit cards, and then you just pay back the loan. But it's usually a lower interest rate, and it's just one payment, blah, blah, blah. So I take out a loan and I pay off my cards. And now I have to pay the loan back. But then I run up the cards again. So now I don't even know on what. Like, I can't even tell you what I was buying, because I don't really have anything to show for it. But I was just charging and charging and charging. And now I've run the cards back up, and I have the loan that I took out to pay off the cards. So now I have the loan plus all the cards. And so now I'm back even deeper in debt than I started. So I finally decide to join this. I see these little ads for, like, I forgot what it's called, but they like work with the creditors to bring your debt down. Like, they may kind of forgive certain amounts, or get the interest rate lowered. They do something. So at this point, my payments are like $800 a month. And I remember, I'm like, oh my God, like, I'm drowning in debt. So I'm like, okay, great. I can pay this back. I'll just pay them. They'll pay my creditors. And like, there's like a payment plan structure. So you'll be done in, X amount of time, instead of just paying the revolving debt forever, which I would have been. Now, what I didn't know at the time was they were a fraud. I found this out later. There was like this class action lawsuit, but this was way after the damage was already done. So I start this program, and they are taking my money. I'm sending them a check every month. And then I start getting creditors calling me saying that I didn't pay this, it's 30 days late, it's 60 days late, whatever it is. And I'm like, it shouldn't be, because I'm paying, such and such, and they're supposed to be paying you. And the creditors are like, we haven't received the dime. So I'm like, okay. So then I call the credit people, the debt consolidation company, whatever they're called, I can't remember. And they tell me, which they did not tell me in the beginning, but they tell me that I have to make 6 months worth of good faith payments. Like, I'm going to pay them for 6 months, and they're not going to pay anybody until I have established that I'm actually going to pay them on time, and then they'll make the payments for me. So I'm like, are you kidding me? Now I had to, if you back out of the program, they keep your money. So I had paid a couple of months before I found out that the creditors weren't being paid. And now I didn't have a whole lot of money, so it wasn't like I could just eat. At that time, I think my payment was like $800 a month, and I couldn't just eat it and say, okay, forget it. And at this point now, I already have late payments on my account because of how this thing is structured. So I just, okay, fine, I'll just a couple more months and then they'll pay my creditors. So I continue to pay them, and they continue to not pay my creditors. So after 6 months goes by, I'm like, hey, like I'm still getting these calls, blah, blah, blah. And they say they're going to start paying. They don't. My money, I guess they just kept it. I'm not really sure what happened. Eventually, I started not being able to get a hold of anybody. When I would call them to try to complain that people were saying they weren't getting their money, I couldn't even get anybody. Anyway, they eventually, it came out that it was just this giant scam, and they were just taking everybody's money. There was like this class action lawsuit, but I was still out of the money that I spent, and now my credit is completely fucked up. Basically, every creditor that I had wasn't getting paid. So it was just an ugly period in my life. And I was so down, and I remember the creditors would call me every day, and I had spent my money paying them, and I didn't have anything extra. So now the creditors still want their money, and I didn't have it. I genuinely didn't have it. And they would call every day. And they were so nasty. And I remember it was just, I felt so low. Like, I can't believe this. It was just a sad time, because they would just call you incessantly. Like, they were relentless. They would call first thing in the morning, all day long. You speak to one and tell them something, and then another one would call you right after that, arguing with you about the same thing. So I eventually was able to kind of pay them down, not off, but down, so that I wasn't drowning in debt. And then I lost my job. And I remember I had a little bit of savings, but probably only enough to go 3 months or so. And it took me more than 3 months to get another job. And I remember thinking, oh snap, like what am I gonna do? So what did I do? I started taking cash advances on my credit card. So if anyone has done this, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't done it, don't do it. So I don't remember what the interest rates were, but like, let's say the regular purchase interest rate was 15%. Cash advances were like 25-30%. So I'm getting cash advances for my credit card just to pay the bills, just to get groceries, just to, pay my rent. Meanwhile, the interest rate is just astronomical. And so I'm going further and further in debt. Every month that I didn't have a job, I'm doing these cash advances, and no bueno. So anyway, I finally get a job, but it took me from April to December, so 7 or 8 months. And I am now in high $30,000 worth of debt. So it was awful. So I'm skipping over certain things, but the gist of it is I made some dumb decisions with buying things that I didn't need to buy, trying to keep up with the Joneses when I was younger. And then when I wasn't working, doing cash advances on my credit card, which was just, if you can avoid it, don't do it. I swear, don't do it. But anyway, I got a job. I got a decent paying job, so I was able to pay it down. So now we go into Payoff and how I got out of debt. And I started, I was looking at all these things online, or watching little money shows or listening to advice. and they were saying pay off your highest interest rates first. And I thought that was a good idea. But for me, my highest interest rate was also my highest balance, which would have made sense to pay that off first. So that's what I tried to do. However, what happened was like that one card had like $25,000 on it. And then there were like little cards here and there, that $1,000 here, $2,000 here. What happened was I would pay the minimum on these little cards and then pay whatever I had extra on the big card. But the big card, because it was so much on there, I wasn't seeing any improvement. Like I would check it every month and it would seem like it was the same amount that it was the month before. Like I wasn't seeing any type of progress. And I would get discouraged month after month, like this is just not working. So what I decided to do, now everybody's different and some people will say don't do it this way. I'm just telling you what worked for me. I decided to pay off the smaller ones first because I had 9 credit cards open at the time, and just the idea of having these 9 different payments to make, that was daunting in itself. And I thought, if I can just get that number down, psychologically, it just made me feel better. Additionally, if I have this one with $1,000 balance and I make this payment on it, I could actually see a difference in it because it went from $1,000 to $800 or whatever, $800 to $600, $600 to $400, as opposed to this $25,000 one where I couldn't see any difference when I was making my $200 extra payment a month. Which is what I was doing. I was putting aside $100 per check. I was getting paid bi-weekly, and I would take $100 out of each check and make a payment on whatever it was. So it was essentially $200 a month that I was paying extra on this bill or these credit card bills. That was how I did it. And then once I would pay off that little one, then I would roll over that extra to the next one, another low balance one, just to get rid of that one. And then I would roll those over to the next one. I think they called it the snowball, I think. But that's what I did. And it just psychologically, it worked better for me because I could actually see a difference. And the number of cards that I had was shrinking. So it eventually just became that one big card. So I just had to pay off that one bill instead of 9. And it just made me feel better. And then all the minimum payments that I had been paying, I could put that extra. So I had actually a little bit more to put towards that one because I had all of those little mini payments on top of the $200 that I was paying, that I was putting aside from each check. Anyway, I finally did it, and I have not been in debt since. This was some years ago. And now I use credit cards only for points, and I pay them off at the end of the month. I really only have one that I use actively. That's my Sky Miles card for Delta. So I use that for just little BS, but I pay it off at the end of every month. So there's never any interest. And that's what I suggest for anyone, if it's not too late. Don't use credit cards just for the hell of it. Like I can remember charging groceries, and I didn't need to. It wasn't even like, oh, I just didn't have any money. I don't know, I was just doing it. And then I couldn't pay it off at the end of the month, so now it's accumulating interest, and it just got out of control. So my suggestion is, do not use credit cards unless you can pay them off at the end of the month. If you can pay them off at the end of every month, have at it. If you can't, try not to use them. Now, with the situation we're in now, I know that may be easier said than done. Like, I don't know what's going to happen or what people's situation is. And if you have to use them, you have to use them. I mean, that is what it is. But if you can, avoid the cash advance part. Like, just charge it if you have to. No cash advances. Seriously, no cash advances, because they were just terrible. The whole process, now I know some of you will be like, oh, hell no. But the whole process from the time that I got the job to the time I paid off my debt took about 3.5 years. Now I got raises over time, and I was able to contribute more than just the $200 a month. after a while. But it took about 3 years altogether to be completely debt free. But it was so worth it. And if anybody can learn from my mistakes, please do. That's actually kind of the point of this video, because you don't have to end up like me, because I was almost homeless. And, I remember they were threatening to repo my car. Like, it was just a mess. The whole thing was it was a nightmare, and it was a very long nightmare. And then, trying to sue the people who ran off with my money. And I think I got something like $5 or something. Like, it was so many people that they ripped off that we didn't get much money back. And it was just, the damage was done. My credit was shot. I was so depressed. It was just bad. So if you can avoid it, please do. But I understand that things are kind of touch and go right now. So, it is what it is. So I hope this will help someone. If it helps one person from going down the rabbit hole that I went down, then great. Other than that, that is it. There was a request for me to do my trading and my stock market stuff, which I will do. I have actually kind of been sitting in cash right now just because of the pandemic. Things are really volatile, and I don't really know what's happening from day to day. So I've been kind of sitting out, which is why I haven't made the video. But I will once things straighten up. My guess would be probably after the election. I anticipate there's going to be some weirdness going on for a little while with everything that's happening right now. But I will do the video. I haven't forgotten. So yeah, until the next time.